Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we've got a very special early impression because it's on an Ensar, which every time I get to wear and talk about an Ensar fragrance, I consider it a gift. I absolutely love his work. However, me and him do disagree on some things. He's a very outspoken person, and I like him for that. I like the fact that he is well read, he speaks his mind, and for the most part, I think he knows exactly what he's talking about. He doesn't come across as a bullshitter, you know? But one thing he did say that I have to sort of disagree with him on is he said that, and he told this to Brandon from Therapeutic Fragrances on a video they did once. He said, I can't support these other channels that, show Tom Ford and all that stuff, and I only support you because you don't show those things. And as a fragrance lover, I have to take a little bit of an exception to that because I do like my Tom Fords and my Rojas and my YSLs and my Dior's and my Creeds and my, Hugo Bosses and all the Serge Lutens, all the other stuff that maybe somebody in the, I forgot what you would want to call, I guess, the Bortnikovs, the Rouge Ladores, the Ensar Ouds of the world, the artisanal houses, I guess is a good word for them. I think Ensar said he prefers that term, so the artisanal houses. I think they sort of look down on some of those brands. And I love everything as a fragrance lover. I go everywhere. And so, for me, I would say it's, very important to kind of understand the history in the fragrance world because for us, as being in America, being in Texas, even though I was born in Jordan, I'm still a American at heart. I've been here since I was 3 years old in Texas. And so for us in the West, if you will, oud is a new thing, real oud. Even the fake oud, let's say, that the brands gave us in stuff like M7, YSL's M7, the westernized oud, I guess you shouldn't say fake, westernized oud, let's say, is a more recent thing within the last 20 years. And so they've been burning and smelling real ouds in the Middle East for millennia. And so for us, I think it's still sort of it's a newer, let's say, experience that we get here in the West. And so I think a lot of people that are going to try his brand, let's say, will have been lovers of some of these previous fragrances, and not all of them are just going to kind of throw them away. So that's one exception I have with Ensar's mindset, but I do really enjoy the brand, and I think he really holds himself out as he tries to hold himself out as the gold standard, and you can see it in the price. Some of his oils are unbelievably pricey, especially if you go to his Aura Scent. I think it's spelled Oriscent, Oricent. It's upwards of you could spend $5,000 on a little bottle, a little thing, 3 grams or whatever it is. And so it's a very expensive rabbit hole to go down, and that's why, as I was saying in the beginning, every time I get to do a video on an Ensar like this, I consider it a blessing. But before we get into the video we're going to talk about today, I just want to say thank you to everybody who subscribed to the channel. We did finally pass the 4,000 subscriber mark, which makes me very happy. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I honestly don't care about numbers. For me, this is a hobby. This is not a business. The couple bucks I make on, YouTube ads or whatever it is a drop in the bucket. It maybe helps support my addiction by buying 1 bottle a month. And so, I'm doing it because I love doing this and I love sharing these videos with you guys. And I'm going to do a very special 4,000 subscriber episode to say thank you. And I've been working on it for the last 2 days. I have basically a rough draft. It's going to be a long video. It's going to be a top 100. I won't say exactly what it'll be yet, but it's going to be a top 100. And so, it takes a long time to make sure, and it's going to be ranked. And so ranking something like that, making sure this fragrance is better than this one and this one, it's very hard to do and takes a lot of time. So I have been working behind the scenes on that. And so today we're just going to basically do this early impression video. But first, let's do scent of the day because yesterday I did a review on Frederic Mall's Uncut Gem. And I was lukewarm on the scent. You can go check out the review to see which parts of the fragrance I liked, which parts I did not like. But so today I wanted to wear something from the brand that I really like. And today I wore Bottarage. And so this is the way that they market French Lover in the United States. It's called Bottarage in the US, and it's called French Lover in Europe. And this is actually an older bottle, and you can tell because it doesn't say EDP France Holdings here. Whenever Estee Lauder purchased Frederick Malle, this is what the older bottles look like here. And the real old bottles have a matte cap instead of this glossy, shiny cap. The real vintage bottles will have a matte cap. And so I wore this today to work, thoroughly enjoyed it. I can still smell it after hours and hours on my skin, dry down. It was a joy and a pleasure to wear. And I'm going to do a comparison video because I still have about 2 or 3 mils of the newer juice, the Estee Lauder version. And so in a nutshell, I think that this one just has a sturdier base. That's sort of what I'm getting from, I haven't done a side-by-side comparison, but just wearing this as my scent of the day and then going through, I think I had like a 7.5 ml mini, or I forget what size Frederick Malle does his little mini bottles in, but I had one of those small bottles. And so I got a couple drops left of that. So I'm going to do a comparison video for you guys between the vintage pre-Estee Lauder and the post-Estee Lauder video. And that's the kind of content I want to do, stuff that no one else is doing. If you actually search for the fragrance I'm going to talk to you about today, it's not even a fragrance. It's really just an oud oil. And I think it came out in 2015. It's called Jing Shen Lu. Jing Shen Lu. And this is a fragrance that I'm thinking came out, again, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm thinking that it came out in 2015. That's my guess. So I'm going to put it down as 2015. I'm not 100% sure, but that's sort of my guess. And so Jin Shen Lu is a very interesting oil because, so this is, I think this is just a pure oud oil, okay? It has many moving parts in that it feels like it's a composition, like it feels like it's an entire fragrance. And that's one of the things that I have just fallen in love with oud on, is how a single oil, this is a Thai oud oil, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's a Thai oud oil with maybe some hints of maybe Vietnamese, or Borneo or something like that. But my guess is this is mostly Thai oud. How oud, just like this, can have so many facets, and we're going to talk about some of those facets today. So we're going to talk about how, you know, it's got these green and earthy elements, these floral elements, and it's just crazy how one oud oil is so complex, and that's what just blows me away. As much as I enjoyed wearing Bottarage to work, I wore this as my scent of the day, I am even enjoying this much more. And again, it can be a very expensive rabbit hole to go down as an oud lover, because it's not cheap. It's a very expensive hobby to get into. And so that's why I say every video like this I get to do, it's an opportunity I can't pass up. Plus, talking about something that has almost very little information on, there actually is someone selling some of this oil. And I forgot how much, but he wants a couple $100 for it, which doesn't seem that bad in the grand scheme of things for an oil that isn't produced anymore from 2015. But so that's why I do these videos. You know, some people are going to say, why are you reviewing an oil that I can't even buy anymore? And most of it is, you know, I want to do these videos on brands like Ensar, Arise Ladore, Bortnikov, because that's really what I've been into lately. But also, I think there's a hole there. And even if you can't get your nose on this particular oil, maybe just hearing me discuss the characteristics helps understand, you know, open up your mind about the way that oud works, and maybe when you come across an oil that you do want to go for, this type of video will help you out. So that's my thinking behind doing this. So here's kind of the thing about reviewing oud oils that makes this very hard for me as sort of a outsider. I'm not a distiller, I'm not a perfumer, I'm just a fragrance lover, let's say. Is that, and this also comes from talking with, you know, my good friend Russian Adam. Go watch our interviews together if you want to learn more about sort of this process, if you will. But whenever you distill oud oil, there are literally a million variables that you can change. A million. You can distill in copper pots. versus steel pots, okay? And I think that this is distilled in a copper pot. That's my guess. Apparently, in a copper pot, it sort of adds this smooth sort of floral aspect to it. The copper actually imparts a smell onto the oud itself that's being distilled in the copper pot. And many people don't think about that, but whether it's distilled, using some sort of steam distillation or using, steel, like I said, stainless steel, or, different types of steel, copper, it's going to change the smell when all is said and done. And so this one feels slightly metallic, and it almost has this slight sort of, I guess you could say, almost like an oxidized smell. It's very hard to describe what copper imparts on an oil that maybe distilling it in something different than a copper pot would add. I would love it if somebody that had more experience on distillation left a comment on exactly what distilling in a copper pot does. And I'm not 100% sure this is even distilled in a copper pot, but that's my guess, is that this has a copper pot distillation because of the smell. And when you first apply the oud oil, it's not even a fragrance, but I'll probably make that mistake many a times while talking about this because it feels like a fragrance. And the first thing that you get when you first apply is basically this paint thinner turpentine-like smell, which I've described before in previous oud oil smelling sessions, some with Russian Atom. And I think distillers don't like to hear that. Sometimes they like to hear, oh, it's got this amazing floral, or let's say it's got this amazing spicy aspect or earthy, they like to hear all these little small nuanced details. But the reality is, when you first apply this, to my nose anyways, you get a very turpentine, paint thinner-like smell. This not super animalic, but there is a slight animalic facet to the opening. And it does change. So just like a fragrance has a top, a mid, and a base, these oud oils also have this amazing, chameleon-like effect in that they move around, they shapeshift, they change. It's unbelievable how one oil can just offer so much pleasure. And so, for me, the initial hints that you're going to get after that sort of turpentine-like opening is you're going to get these green floral notes that will arise basically as the oil continues to dry on your skin. And so, I just re-swiped this maybe like an hour ago, and look at this. It's still just, it's a heavy, thick oil. And there's nothing that... So, initially, when you first spray, I think the opening can be slightly overwhelming. There's nothing that's just going to jump out and grab you right away, but as the minutes tick by, as that minutes turn into hours, you're going to notice that this fragrance has facets of floral. So you're going to have this flowers in bloom like smell, and mixing that with almost this freshness of tea, of green tea. And I love tea in a composition. I've actually done this is not a top 10 tea video, and I think I even ranked it. I think I ranked my favorite tea fragrances, and that my favorite tea fragrance will be on the 4,000 subscriber video I'm going to do as a hint. So so imagine this sort of fresh tea-like, green tea-like aspect with almost like flowers in full bloom. And so from the brand, it actually says that it is a delicate, richly layered feast of blue gearnops, painted green, but doused in slow-releasing heavenly incense, okay? And so what's interesting about that is this fragrance, or this oud oil, I guess you can call it, has this kien-like feeling. And kien, I think, is a Japanese word that basically means incense. But this has this... So as that paint thinner, turpentine, freshly painted barn-like effect, which I love. I absolutely do. I love it. But I think some people may find it weird. Somebody who's not an oud head may listen to this and think that I'm completely out of my mind. Who likes paint thinners? Who likes, you know, turpentine-like smell? But it's true. It's a smell that really comes to grow on you as you continue in your oud journey. And what's interesting is this what did I say it was? Kien. This kien note, this incense note just slowly starts to sort of unfurl, almost like you're lightly burning incense, right? Not scorching it with a torch or something, but just lightly burning this incense. And the wafts of the incense are kind of meandering in between the green touches. And you know, the green tea, also one thing I should mention, is it gives it this very grassy vegetal odor, which is something I really enjoy. And you notice it more and more into the dry down, actually. I guess an oil, again, doesn't have a dry down, but what you would imagine it to have a dry down. One thing that the brand says that I don't get, though, and maybe it's just because I am not, I guess you could say, versed enough with Ensar's offerings. Ensar has done a lot of stuff, to be fair. Like, if you go to Parfumo and you look at how many fragrances he's released, he has like 16 pages. And with stuff like this, you know, listed, no comments on it, one note, oud, Thai oud is the only thing that's listed on Parfumo. So it's sometimes very hard, unless you're going to go smell each individual one, which, like I said, is hard to do because these are expensive. It's hard to kind of be able to compare. But one thing that he did mention in some of the press releases that I found, it's interesting, though, because if you go to his website, this is no longer even listed on the website. Some of the stuff is like archived, where you can go back and read about them. This one doesn't even come up as a listing anymore. But it says that these incenses are mixed with matcha leaves and crushed and pressed into aloes, and that the incense verges on oceanic blue-green tones. Now, that oceanic blue-green tone, I don't get. I don't get that. I don't get the oceanic vibe. Maybe the only thing my brain can sort of wrap around is maybe if he's saying that the oceanic vibe adds this saltiness to it. Because maybe you could say, okay, there's a little bit of this salty, oceanic, ambergris-like smelling air, which again is unbelievable from a one-note composition, right? But there is a little bit of this salty, ambergris-like feel, almost like you're smelling the air sort of next to the ocean. But to me, the ocean is like further away. You know, you're maybe in your backyard, and the ocean's like, you know, you can maybe smell some of the air, but you can't see it. You're not just going to go run, jump in the ocean. You're not on the beach or anything like that to me. And so, but it does release this very slow incense, intermingling with these green, grassy notes, like I mentioned earlier. And the green aspects of the juice remind me, one thing that came to mind as it continued to dry, and I was smelling this this dry down, for lack of a better word, is how whenever I was smelling these very high quality Kinam compositions, like for example, Russian Adams knew the history of Kinam oud is one great example. I also have a review on the channel of, I think it's Agar Aura's, there's a Kinam from Agar Aura and there's one from Ensar. Ensar's was Jungle Kinam, which I really enjoyed that one. But some of these Kinam-like fragrances have this cloudy, puffy, you know, marshmallow kind of gentle, soft, you know, mintiness that comes out. And it's supposed to be very relaxing. And that's an aspect to the oil of high quality Kinam. Like the most expensive oud, the most sought after oud is Kinam oud. And it's not my favorite oud, to be honest with you, which just goes to show high price doesn't always mean better for you. You may like some of the lower graded oils. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Many times I prefer the more animalic or the more barnyard oils, even though to some oud heads, they'll say, oh no, you know, it's like the, no way, I could never wear an oud oil that has barnyard facets to it, because they feel like they've gone past that. And maybe at some point in the journey, you know, you do get to that point, but I'm nowhere near there. I still love my barnyard animalic ouds. I think I always will. But some of those very expensive ouds, believe it or not, are some of the least barnyardy, and they have this very minty, cloudy aspect to the oil. And this does an amazing job of, to me, playing contrast, because on one hand, it has this very animalic, turpentine, solvent-like opening, almost like paint thinner smell, like I said earlier. And I've learned to love that smell. But on the other hand, it retains this very relaxing, minty, cloudy, green, not very earthy, but beautiful floral aspects, with the incense sort of wisping in and out. And, if just imagine, okay, so let me set the scene. So imagine that you're sitting on your deck, okay? Like I said, the ocean is maybe close enough you can smell the salty air, but not close enough where you're just going to tell your kids to go jump in the ocean and, go have a good time and play, right? You're sitting on your backyard deck, and your freshly stained deck, I should mention, and you're hosting people. You're playing the good host, right? And so it's the very first time you're having guests on your freshly stained deck, okay? And some of your guests are eating fruit. Some of your guests are drinking wine. Some of your guests are having this fresh green tea, which you made for them. It's very refreshing, right? And others have kind of went into your flower bed, and let's say they picked some fresh flowers from the garden, and they've returned to your freshly stained deck, sitting around with all your other friends. And so the fragrance, while again, it's just an oud oil, it's just Thai oud. Maybe there's different types of oud oil in there, but I think it's mostly just this Thai oud. But it has this complexity of an entire composition. And it brings in all of these elements and brushstrokes that you just wouldn't expect from an oud oil. And again, that's one of the reasons why I have just been completely grabbed by oud. Is, in my very first interview with Russian Adam, he told me oud is to him the top of the mountain ingredient, right? It's the most complex. It's the most amazing ingredient. And I don't think I really understood what he meant by that then when he said it, because I just didn't have enough experience with oud. I knew a little bit, and I smelled some things, but I really didn't have the experience a year ago when I first did that interview, or whatever it was, even maybe longer. I didn't have the experience that I have now with oud. And so now that I've had a chance to smell so much more, I see exactly what he's talking about. How oud really is the mountaintop ingredient for me. And I'll always be a leather lover. Leather is still my absolute favorite note in a fragrance composition. But just the fact that one oil can have these touches that smell green and grassy and relaxing and minty, and the florals in here. The other thing I should mention, the one thing I haven't said about the florals, is that the florals are very dry. There are some fresh flower touches, I would say, but the florals come across smelling almost like you're smelled marigold. Have you ever smelled marigold before? We actually have some marigold that my wife planted in our arrow garden. She bought these arrow gardens, and they're basically this inside garden thing that it has a light. And I think they were featured on Shark Tank. I think they were like a company that took off in popularity because of this Shark Tank episode on CNBC, if I'm not mistaken. But you actually put the pod in there, almost like you're putting a pod in a Keurig thing, right? So you put the pod of the plant you're going to plant, and the plant pushes through the pod, it grows, and this machine feeds it. So it feeds it, when it's time to put water in, it gives it water. All you do is keep the water in, you put the food in, and the machine does it when it's time, right? It's kind of a cool little deal. It turns the light on when it's time. It does everything, okay? So it grows these plants. And she planted some marigold to keep aphids and all these, because they don't like the smell of marigold. And she cut some the other day. And I walked downstairs and I was like, what is that smell? Like, it hit me like a wall. It's extremely strong, and it's this dry floral-like smell. And I mean, I didn't know it was marigold at the time, but as soon as she said it, she was like, yeah, I was cutting the marigold, I was trimming it. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, the whole downstairs smelled of marigold, strong too. I thought she sprayed something, honestly. I was like, what did you spray? I've never smelled this before. What did you spray? And so it has this dry hay-like texture. this floral dry hay-like texture. And it's really alluring to me. You know, I absolutely love it. Some people think marigold smells bad, but I actually don't. You know, it has this wet hay straw-like smell, some people say, and that's pretty much true. But I love what it adds to this composition. This dry, almost like, you know, almost like you can see the you can see the color, that brownish yellow color when you see a marigold, that reddish brownish color. You can almost see that color when you close your eyes and smell this, but mixed with all of these other elements. It's just beautiful. So that's why I wanted to do this video. I know that there's going to be people on here. I know that these type of videos are not going to get the views. These are not the view videos. People want the lists. They want to see a lot of fragrances shown to them at one time. And I completely understand that. Lists are cool. Lists get the views. They just do. But I think these type of videos are important as well. And, you know, on something like this where maybe I can squeeze another swipe or two out of the juice that's left for my own personal enjoyment before bed one or two more times. But for the most part, I'll never be able to smell this again. So I just wanted to share it with you. This is, again, Ensar Oud's Jing Shen Lu. And it was a pleasure getting to know it. And I do have to say thank you to Hari, who sent me the sample. So I just wanted to do a quick, you know, late night insight video, if you will, on this, because my time and attention is going towards building the thank you video for the 4,000 subscriber. You know, as a thank you to everyone that has subscribed and got us to where we are in our first year and a half with the channel. And yeah, I just can't believe how fast we've grown. It happened very, very quickly. So again, thank you to everyone who has subscribed. It means a lot. You know, the community aspect of this is really what keeps me going, and I love the interaction. If you've by any chance had a chance to smell this, I assume it will only be a handful of people, but you've had a chance to smell Jing Shen Lu, or actually any of Ensar's just pure ouds themselves, let me know. I did a video on Japanese Rose by Ensar, which was really like just a rose atto. So I have reviewed some of these ingredients that he has put out there, but yeah, I wouldn't call myself an Ensar expert or anything like that, just because he has so much. I mean, like I said, 16 pages of, let's say, 10 fragrances each or 12 fragrances on each page. You know, he's got a ton of stuff out there, and they make them in small batches, and so they get released and then they get discontinued, and they're very hard to keep up with. But pleasure every time I get a chance to smell one. So thank you, Hari, for sharing this sample with me. Thanks to you guys for getting us to the 4,000 subscriber mark. My guess is the special thank you video will drop this weekend. So in the meantime, I'm going to continue working on it, and you know, make sure that it's exactly the way I want it. So you might see just some small videos from me here and there until the weekend. But again, thanks everybody. Do leave a comment. I love the interaction. We're still small enough, even at 4,000 subscribers, where I can reply to every single comment that's left. And I try my best to respond to every single one. So again, thank you everybody. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.